Hey guys, remember The Flash, Season 3, Episode 11, Dead or Alive, and I was looking forward to this episode, but I really wasn't at the same time because, again, I haven't really been loving The Flash lately, especially the past couple episodes. I really feel they haven't had a lot of direction. It just kind of seems like they're making things up on the fly, and I really didn't know how this episode was going to be. And I will say that was this a perfect episode? No, definitely. It was still hella flawed, but compared to last week, this was, I think, a much better paced episode that really is a much better version of what the show should be, and that, of course, is fun. I mean, that's what The Flash is meant to be. It's meant to be fun compared to Arrow and things like that. It's meant to be a fun show, and this episode was fun. I definitely did enjoy it overall a lot more than, I thought it was going to. So let's just get into this episode because I do want to talk about it. I don't have a ton to say, I will definitely say that, but I did definitely really like this episode. So we start off with a group of arms dealers meaning to a deal while we hear HR narrating the scene. The dealers are thwarted by Barry and HR, who happens to have a huge vortex cannon. The scene cuts to Team Flash HQ, where it's revealed that HR is actually writing a book, and we already knew that HR was writing a book, but I like the way we started off with his book. It was kind of cool to hear his narration, and HR is already such an animated character and just has so many cool mannerisms and things about him that just hearing him talk is a lot of fun to watch. So alerts begin sounding, and we find out that there's another crime in progress, and the two Flashes, both Barry and Wally, speed out and stop the crime in progress. A crowd assembles and begin chanting Kid Flash's name. Now, this was a little bit silly, but I like that the show embraces its cheese sometimes. I think they do a good job with that, and but this is much like last weekend. Wally's a lot more celebrated at being Kid Flash than, Barry is, and, Wally can't really hide that he's Kid Flash and things like that, so that was kind of cool to see, and I do like seeing Barry and Wally work together. I will say that. I think they work well together, and I like seeing this a lot more than Barry getting all mad at Wally. I like the way that we saw it here. So the group finds himself back at Star Labs. Wells congratulates the group while Wally gives props to Barry, and I like the way that Wally is actually being kind of modest here. Wally has a tendency to be very selfish, and I get it that he wanted to help Barry and things like that, but he still has been a bit selfish, in his run on the show, and I like that he actually did, congratulate Barry, because, I mean, if it hadn't been for Barry, he wouldn't be doing this, so I definitely really like that, and the rest of the group dissipates. Barry then confronts Cisco/Vibe on if he's found a way to change the future yet, and Cisco and Caitlin then take Barry to show him a Lego diagram of a scene where Savitar murders Iris in the future, and that's the kind of cool stuff this show does. Like a Lego model, that's awesome. That is this show. Things like that. That is what The Flash needs to do every single week. Ridiculous stuff like that. Julian joins the trio, and I love that Julian's actually in Star Labs now and he's working with them. It felt awkward to not have Julian there, honestly. Now that we know that Julian knows, it feels like they're using him really well. So he begins going through the scientific process and what speeds and velocity Barry needs to travel to stop Savitar from murdering Iris in the future, and Julian then leaves the group, and Cisco mentions how he's a bit blunt about it. He doesn't really, know what to say. He's, doesn't really provide much of anything, and I like the direction that this is going, and I will definitely say it was a lot more interested in the Barry saving Iris storyline than I was last week. And why? It's because we don't focus on it nearly as much as we did last week. It wasn't really heavy-handed at all. It's more of how do we solve it, and that's more of what I want to see, and less of Barry moaning and whining about it every 5 seconds like we've been getting this season. So we cut to Jitters for the first time in a while. I feel like it's been a long time since we've gone to Jitters. I mean, the Jitters used to be one of the hot spots of this show. It used to be one of those, regular places that we go to see characters, just have a good time, and we haven't gone to see Jitters in a long time. Maybe it's because the characters haven't really had time and things like that, but it was definitely cool to see Jitters back. It just gives us more of a sense, again, of what the show should be, and I enjoyed seeing Jitters, I'm not gonna lie. It definitely gave me, more like, oh, this is back to the status quo. This is what The Flash should be. It definitely made me feel more at home, and I did like that, because that, again, it plays to the show's strengths, and I like the way that they did that. So we basically see that Gypsy, she uses her powers to break into Jitters. She picks up a coin, gets a vibe vision of HR paying, and basically We then see, basically, she's doing a little reconnaissance work, and from there, we see that there's this alarm that goes off, and when two policemen arrive, Gypsy blasts them with her powers, steps through a dimensional portal, and immediately we're drawn into her character. They did do a good job with this character of Gypsy, who I liked a lot more than I thought it was going to. Now, I did hear she's a little bit different from her comic book origin, but again, I don't read the comic books, so this didn't really matter to me. But the next day, Barry and Joe are checking the crime scene. They figure that a new meta was involved, and Joe figures that Flash and Kid Flash can handle it. He doesn't really need to be involved, and he then asks Barry to get Iris to back off for a bit, wonders if she seems okay. Obviously, because he knows what's gonna, he doesn't know what's gonna happen to Iris. They haven't told him, but Joe wonders if Barry and Iris have something going on, and Barry claims they're both doing great, because he's seen the romantic tension between them, and of course, they can't tell him why. It is definitely an interesting storyline that they can't tell Joe what's going on, but because that, it does cause Joe to be very left out of the know of things, and it is weird that Joe is very left out. Like, he doesn't know any of this stuff. Joe's always the one that's kind of in the know, so for the one person that Barry usually goes to talk about things, or him not to be able to talk to you, it does feel kind of weird, but it's also kind of refreshing that Joe actually doesn't know something for a change. It was kind of interesting to see. So later at Star Labs, Cisco, Caitlin, and HR examine the surveillance footage from Jitters. Gypsy arrives in front of the lab and calls to HR by name. She tells him to come quietly. HR says that she's from Earth 19 and came to collect him. Gypsy then creates a portal, enters the lab. She draws a locking device, fires it at HR, and doesn't kill him, but Cisco does vibe the gun out of her hand. Gypsy, surprised, discovers that he has powers like hers, and she teleports behind Cisco, knocks him away, and Kid Flash then speeds in. She blasts him, paralyzing him, and then says that they're harboring a fugitive for justice. So you really can see that she really does not, she means business. Like, this is someone who will definitely do damage to the team, and seeing her injure Kid Flash definitely shows that. Just these little things they do a very good job of showing us who Gypsy really is. So, Earth 19 has a strict ban on interdimensional traveling, we find out. This is something that HR wasn't supposed to do. He's not really supposed to be there, and HR's beaming his story back chapter by chapter, and they're getting word, that he's not on their Earth. So Gypsy tells HR that he has an hour to get his affairs in order, and then she'll take him back to their Earth, and with that, she teleports away. So I like that HR isn't supposed to be there. Like, he actually is breaking the rules by doing that. Again, it's a different kind of storyline. We really haven't seen that before, but it gives HR something to do, but besides, just talk about how much he wants to remodel the Star Labs and things like that. I definitely really like that, but Cisco then reads HR's chapter. He tells the others what HR has been doing and how he's made himself the hero, and Caitlin complains that Cisco was flirting with Gypsy, and HR says that the punishment for unauthorized breach travel is death, we find out, which is crazy. Obviously, we know HR is not going to die, but after Earth 19 was invaded by another Earth, his government banned all such travel. He refused to say why he traveled to Earth 1 in the first place, and he goes to Pac. So we don't really know what that reason is, but Barry says he saw HR in the future, which means that they must stop Gypsy, because obviously HR is going to live, and if, he kills Gypsy, then HR is going to cease to exist. Now, if this was Barry last week, he would have just said, alright, kill HR, because then I can save Iris, but I actually like he's thinking logically here. That's not something Barry does a lot, but Julian points out that letting HR go might, in fact, change the future, and Barry then goes to the paper, tells Iris what happened. He asks her if she told Joe about the future, and Iris confirms that she didn't, and Barry assures that it won't happen. That's why they're not going to tell him. It's not going to happen in the first place, so why should they tell him? So Barry suggests that she let the arms dealer thing go, and Iris agrees to drop it. So at Star Labs, Kid Flash and tests his speed in the pipeline. Iris looks on. He stops, and Iris talks about how she's on to a bigger story, and she insists that she wants to see justice done, and points out that she doesn't die until May. We know that. That's something that we saw from last week, that she's not going to die until May. So basically the season finale for this, for season 3, that's when she's slated to die. So Iris says that they should fight crime together and not tell anyone. There's, ways to combat against this. So Cisco then visits HR in his quarters, asks him why he risked his life to come to Earth 1, and HR says that on his Earth he didn't matter and was actually a fraud, and he came to Earth 1 to basically rewrite his story. And I actually really liked this reason why he came to Earth 1. I actually found it to be quite compelling. So Barry overhears him, asks if there's anything they can do, but HR angrily says that he has no options except trial by combat, and there really is nothing else that Barry can do. And I like that HR just kind of taking it. He knows that he's done wrong. He knows there's absolutely nothing he can do. And he's quite upset about it. He really does want to, to acclimate to this world. And he really has started to blend in well. But now he has to face trial by combat. And it actually makes his care for HR a lot more than we already did. So Caitlin then calls to say that Gypsy's there. The others go outside to meet her as HR steps forward. Cisco then challenges Gypsy to trial by combat. Barry says that he was going to do it, but Gypsy points out that Cisco spoke first, and she warns Cisco that it's trial by death and asks if he wants her to take advantage of the 24 hours to prepare. Cisco agrees. Gypsy then teleports away, and Cisco realizes that Gypsy is going to kill her, which is crazy, but later in the training warehouse, the team reviews a video of Gypsy, HR, and Julian. Both agree that Gypsy will kill Cisco, and Barry figures that Cisco can do it with a little practice. So Julian tells Caitlin to prepare the med bay, and then quickly says it's for Gypsy, not Cisco. Meanwhile, HR tells Cisco that no one has ever beaten Gypsy, and he's not going to be the first one to do it. So HR wonders why Cisco's risking his life for him, and Cisco says that unlike the other two Wells, HR depends on them. Harrison Wells is very experienced. He was, kind of looked at as an authoritative figure. And then, Wells was just kind of an asshole who knew what he was doing. HR, on the other hand, is much more, not reclusive, but he's a lot more apprehensive about himself and a lot more shy, and he wants to be there for HR after all the other Harrisons did for him. He's the first one who hasn't done anything for them because he can. He needs them to depend on him. So I really do like the way that Cisco wants to save me. It was very selfless, and I definitely really like that. So Iris and Wally go to the CCPD. Iris tells her brother to swap the files on the case and take photos, and Wally refuses without explanation. Iris says that he could be her last few months, and she wants her life to mean something as a reporter. So Wally agrees. They go to Joe's office where he's meeting with Cecile, who I feel like we haven't seen in a long time to get a warrant, and Iris goes in alone, asks to talk to Joe privately, and she talks about how she wants to get Barry a pet, basically to try to mend their relationship. And I love this scene, how Joe thought she was talking about, having a child, and it was actually about getting a pet, and Iris then thanks her father for the chat. Just a really fun scene. We haven't had these two have a really playful scene in a while, so that in itself was just refreshing to not have these two just not each other's throats, actually have them on good terms. I definitely really like that, especially because we started out this season, they weren't on good terms. So at the warehouse, Cisco's trained without much success. Barry tells him to trust his instincts, and Cisco teleports away and ends up in the rafters, and HR then talks to Barry privately, says that they can't let Cisco fight Gypsy, and he explains that he tagged Gypsy with a tracer and knows that she's at the waterfront. So at the waterfront, HR then approaches Gypsy as she enjoys a cup of coffee. He says that Cisco's just trying to protect him and offers his hand. Flash then speeds forward, but Gypsy tosses him into a portal, jumps in after him, handcuffs him, and then jumps them both back out, and she reminds HR that he broke their most sacred laws, and figures that their attempt forfeits Cisco's challenge. So Gypsy agrees, but does take HR as insurance, because, that's just what she has to do. There's nothing she can really do about that. But back at Star Labs, Barry tells the others what happened. Cisco's very unhappy that Barry and HR went behind his back, because he wanted to be the one to do it on his own, and Barry goes after him as he goes to his workshop. Barry apologizes, says that the situation with Savitar has him rattled, and Cisco wonders how Barry handles all this pressure, because obviously there's a lot being put on him, and Barry says that he leans on his friends, and he tells Cisco that it's okay to be afraid and actually can lean on them. And I like this conversation that Barry had. Barry tends to be an asshole a lot, and here he really was encouraging Cisco and telling him that it's okay if he's afraid of fighting Savitar, because it gives him vulnerability. It gives him something to fear. It shows that he's not invincible. It actually makes him stronger that way, and I think that's something that Barry has really learned. It actually does make him stronger, and Julian then comes in that says that he's come with a practical solution, shows them how Gypsy's feet come off the ground for a split second when she uses a breach, and they figure that she'll be off balance and tell Cisco to take advantage of it, and Cisco and Barry then thank him for his help. So Julian actually did provide something to them, and I like the way that Julian is, in fact, helping them out. They talked about how Julian was kind of irrelevant, but I like the way he really is fitting in there pretty well. So Iris and Kid Flash go to the arms dealer's warehouse. Iris suggests that Kid Flash do a quick reconnaissance, and once he leaves, Iris breaks in, finds the crates of weapons, and as she takes foes, the arms dealer comes in, prepares to shoot her. Iris then calmly advances on him, says that it isn't her day to die. Kid Flash comes in, knocks the dealer out. They hear sirens in the distance, and Kid Flash figures that Joe is cool with them fighting crime. And then Joe quickly complains that, he's not at all cool with this, and he says he ruined a major sting operation and wonders where Barry was. And Iris says that's more of a story to her. Wally points out that, she almost got shot, and Joe demands an explanation. So Barry leads Iris out into the next room. Iris says their story will change lives, and she's not afraid to die. She already knows it's coming, so she's accepting it. She's accepting that she's going to die, and she's not really too upset about it. However, she is afraid that she'll end up without her mother, not leaving anything behind, and that was a very powerful scene, knowing that Iris is worried that she'll turn out just like Francine did, and Barry assures Iris that her mother left behind a son and daughter, and says that they will face the future together. So Cisco comes in, says that Gypsy just vibed for him her location, and that night at the docks, Gypsy figures that Cisco is a coward, and as HR defends Cisco, Vibe arrives, and Gypsy warns that she'll kill him. She misses she was hoping Cisco wouldn't show, blasts him back, and at Star Labs, the team watches the fight. Barry reminds the others that they can't interfere or they forfeit, and Vibe then recovers. The two of them deadlock their beams. I love seeing Vibe take on Gypsy, and I love that he was saying he's gonna go full Westworld on her, but Gypsy creates a breach, jumps through it with Cisco. They reappear on Earth 2. Gypsy then punches Vibe. He teleports her to Catco on Supergirl's Earth 38. That was really cool to see. He knee-highs her in the groin, but again, that's something they can do because he can Vibe anywhere. They teleport away again. They appear in another Earth filled with volcanoes. Vibe figures that she's flirting with him because she's worried. They teleport back to Earth 1, and Gypsy says that Vibe lets his fear and insecurity hold him back. Then she teleports over to HR, and Cisco vibes her before she can touch the ground. However, after a moment, he releases her, tells her to admit that he won, and Gypsy then turns HR, says that her life is his, and Cisco says it's not their way, and that he's just a normal single guy. So yes, obviously Cisco was able to save HR, that was predictable there, but it just was cool to see Cisco actually take on, the villain. It wasn't Barry that got to do it, Cisco got to do it for a change, and it just, again, was very refreshing the way they did that. So Caitlin confirms that Cisco's fine. Barry asks Gypsy what she's going to do now. She says she'll tell her superiors that she killed HR rather than admit that she failed for the first time. And once they think that HR is dead, they're not going to hurt him because, then they'll think he's dead. They're not going to hunt down for him. So HR agrees not to go back because there's really nothing waiting for him there. He wasn't accepted there. He was looked at as a fraud, and he feels a lot more accepted on Earth 1. So you definitely feel like we're going to get this HR for a lot longer. He's probably going to stay on for the duration of the show, and she tells him that some laws are worth breaking for the right person. They say goodbye for now, and I did like seeing Cisco and Gypsy interact overall. It was fairly brief, but it just was a lot of fun to, again, watch Cisco interact with someone. I definitely really did enjoy that. So they start to kiss. Gypsy and teleports away, and Cisco admires her exit. So later at their loft, Barry then reads Iris' story. She finally asks Barry what he thinks of the article, and Barry tells her that she should be very proud. He apologizes, figures that since he beat Savitar once, he will do it again and save Iris' life. It shouldn't be too hard to do. So HR's dictating another chapter of his story when Cisco comes in. He says that he's dictating it for himself to show that he accomplished something, because he genuinely wants to feel happy with himself, that he actually has the ability to accomplish something. It's not impossible. He actually can do that, and Cisco says that he's already accomplished a lot. Cisco points out that HR got him to risk his life, and HR thanks him for his help. And when Cisco says that the other Wells often made him feel better, HR asks him for some examples, and Cisco talks about how the first Harrison said that one day he would have to be a hero as well, and he figures his investment in HR will pay off one day. This is definitely going to help in the long run, and I like the way those two are really bonding. But then we get to the ending. Now, this was definitely very intriguing, to say the least. I like where this is going. Barry goes to the pipeline room. He watches Wally practicing his running, and he then tells Wally that he's going to have to go faster so that he can actually save Iris from Savitar. Barry can't be the one to do it. It has to be Wally, and that is the way the episode ends. Very interesting stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode and really where I think this is going to take us. So overall, while I really wasn't expecting much in this episode, this was really a well done episode, I have to say, because one, I thought we had some very good development with the Barry Iris plot. They actually did some really good stuff with them. It wasn't too heavy handed. It made sense where they're going with that. Two, it wasn't a procedural. This wasn't at all a filler episode. What this episode was the episode to finally give us time to see, HR, because we haven't known anything about him really. He's been very secretive, and I like that they're finally admitting to us who HR really is. He was this writer, and he wanted to be accepted, and everyone thought he was a fraud and that he couldn't accomplish anything. And I like that he's trying to give himself confidence, to admit that he can do something and that he is capable of accomplishing something. It's just a really interesting storyline. I'm very interested in seeing where that's going to go. I really like that we have this dynamic with HR and Cisco. Those two actually work really well together, and I like the way that Cisco is helping HR. HR's not helping Cisco, he's helping HR. It's kind of reverse. And again, they do so well with this bond between these two. It's been so different for 3 seasons, and their bond has always been a central part of the show. And I like that they haven't really done a ton with HR and Barry, because HR and Cisco is just so much more interesting because of how Wells and Cisco were. So I really like where they're going with that. I think that overall is very interesting. But let's talk about the Wally of it all, because this was a great episode for Wally, I have to say. I mean, this is one of the few episodes where I didn't feel like Wally was doing anything stupid. I didn't think Wally was acting irrational. I understood where Wally was coming from most of the time, that, he wants to be able to fight, and he is now going to be the one to protect Iris, it seems. And I like that Iris is really starting to, come to that point where she's like, holy shit, this could be the end of my life. I need to try to spare every moment, live every moment as my last. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's trying to write the best stories, trying to have, more time with Barry, and I really like where that's going. Now that we know that Iris is going to die, which we don't know if Iris is really going to die, now it actually is meaning something. Now it's like, holy shit, she could actually die. Now I'm actually feeling like her life is on the line. And I think they're doing a pretty good job with that. And that's something that hasn't really been in the past few episodes. It's kind of just been an afterthought, and it really wasn't here. But it wasn't even the central plot, and that's something I thought was actually very well done, is the episode, of course, where it's not the central plot, is the episode where it feels the most real. And I thought that was extremely well done, the way they handled that. I also thought Julian fit very well in here. I like seeing him part of the team. I thought that definitely was very well done. Overall, guys, this is a really great episode. I really thought there was a lot of really great stuff going on here. My only, I think, flaw with the episode is that Julian, in general, even though he did fit well in here, I still don't really know why he's on Team Flash. He doesn't really seem to be contributing a lot. He's smart, definitely, but there just really wasn't a ton going on with him, and absolutely nothing in Caitlin's plot. We had nothing going on with her and Julian trying to get rid of her powers. There wasn't anything going on there. I would have wanted to see that. It's been the most intriguing storyline all season, but I will say, this is the episode where things that were kind of lame and were kind of not really intriguing me now are starting to. So I think the show is kind of starting to get better. And if the show goes in the direction they go tonight, where they focus less on let's make the show more dark and brooding and have Barry complain every 5 seconds, and more on let's just have fun, that is what the show needs to be. And I think they did a really great job with that in this episode. I really did enjoy it overall. I want to see more episodes of Flash like this, and I really did enjoy even the pairing of Barry and Wally. I thought was very well done. I really did enjoy a lot of what was going on here. The thing with Joe, I mean, it could be annoying, but it's actually not. I think they're making a lot of sense, why they're not telling him, because they're trying to make sure it doesn't happen. They don't want to get his hopes up, but at the same time, they don't want to scare him. So I like the direction that that's going as well. It really does seem like that, Iris's life is on the line. There's a lot that can happen throughout the rest of the season. I'm very interested in seeing where the rest of the season is really going to take us. And overall, guys, I really enjoy this episode. I am going to give The Flash Season 3, Episode 11, Dead or Alive, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. So over, guys, Mary the Flash, the most guys thought of this episode overall, loved your thoughts, and then how did you feel about this compared to last week's episode? This definitely did feel more like, well, not more like a mid-season premiere, but it definitely was closer to what the show should be. But that's for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in the next, which will be for tonight's episode, Legends tomorrow, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.